This is Frankie Aberzino with the Scoop News. Today, I'm just summarizing what happened yesterday at the Venice City Council meeting. One of the things on the agenda was the purchase, possibly the purchase of the woods from Neil Communities. This is a controversial property, which I was involved with, and a lot of resistance came up against it. Neil told the city attorney he would consider selling it at market value versus building homes on it. So a lot of people previewed this as, hey, if the city goes with this illustrates that they're going to do a controlled, sustainable growth. However, led by hawks like Hollick, it was shot down. Fred Fraze and Deb Anderson and Rich Cotero were the only three that would have considered it. Rich had some, he said basically you got to put it on a bond out to the city, which is fine. But it got shot down, illustrating that they still want growth by the pro-growth team of Bob Daniels, Jeanette Gates, and John Hollick. Now, so that's 263 homes that are going to be built on there. And some other stuff you already know about the parking lot. That's something that during that whole election process, I kept saying, why are we building this thing for so much? And then yet we're not replacing fire trucks. We're not repairing buildings and all that good stuff. And finally, I think that message got through to 4 of the 7 council members, and they decided, you know what, we need to hold off until we find out what needs to be done with all these buildings, all these repairs, and then have the city manager prioritize. And if it's still up there, then we'll go with it. In terms of the well field, I put out the emails to you guys. I think I shared a story from one of the news agencies out there. They're looking at, they basically talked about that, and they said, hey, let's do a survey, have Parks and Rec get out there and do a survey and a report on what we're looking at. They want to make it a mega thing, which I could tell you we'll get a lot of resistance from the people over in the Pine Brook area. They're fighting like hell right now against a 40 room apartment complex next to the diocese here, and I can't imagine they would not be happy with this. They talked about the correcting an error with a annexation from the Gulf Coast with the Bridges property. And then lastly, this is funny, it was the guy, the owner of Fence, came up and said, 2 things with the trolley. The people that reviewed it and said we maybe could do it is if we put advertising on the trolley. But then they found out that the city cannot advertise for others, some rules, so they can't do that right now until they come up with an ordinance, which will take forever. Then he also illustrated something that I've said a million times. It's you guys aren't using it for its purpose. It was to help alleviate parking, and right now it's become a tourist attraction. Going down the South Jetty here and there. So basically, they removed the South Jetty from it and rerouted it, the trolley. But essentially, the way it's marketed, and I even went on read some of the news articles and the pages and that. It's almost marketed like it is there for a tour around Venice. It's free. Come out and check out the city. Versus putting up a sign and language and illustrations telling people, hey, you can park here. We got a trolley that'll pick you up. So it's designed that way. Still not sure if it's worth the amount of money. The amount of money I put out, they kept saying, well, you got the wrong numbers, especially that idiot Earl Kimmel at Herald Tribune. Because what happened is they kept changing the timeline. I've heard a year, I've heard 4 months, 6 months, 2 months, 6 weeks. John went on a radio station. He told us at a debate 4 months. Then he said on a radio station, oh no, only 3 months. And then he went back and said it was 4 months. So the numbers kept changing. And Earl decided, oh, Frank doesn't know how to do his math. He's not paying attention. It's like, I'm paying attention. But what this government does and what media does and these goofball reporters is they report what they want to, that's along the lines of what the government wants to put out. This guy Earl could have basically looked at what was being communicated and said, yeah, you do have your numbers right based upon the miscommunications that John keeps putting out. But he decided not to do that because the Herald, the Gondo, and all those guys were for John. So that's how our system works. But until you guys stand up, which we saw in November, you're not going to, it's going to continue, unfortunately. This has been Frankie Aberzino with the Scoop News.